Welcome. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and you are an important part of our EWTN family. And we are delighted that you have welcomed us into your home. We would love to hear from you. So send us an email with a question or a comment to jimandjoy@ewtn.com. And today our guest is Philip Campbell. He is a Catholic author, an educator, a historian. He's the author of a textbook, The Story of the Church, From Pentecost to Modern Times. And this great book is available on EWTNRC.com. We're going to have a great show with Philip.
We're going to have a great show. I've always enjoyed history, studying history, but I don't think it's been any more important than it is right now, history.
Yes.
For a variety of reasons. And one of the things is that it's like people are rewriting history, or they're leaving parts of history out, or they're saying something happened at this time when really it happened at that time. I mean, I always thought that history was written as historic, factual. It happened on such and such a time and such a date. These people were there.
And it was unchangeable.
But there's people messing around.
Right.
Okay, so it's important to say, well, what is the real history? And Philip is an incredible writer and author. He's not only done the story of the church, but he's done the story of civilization. I mean, okay, so how broad is that? And so we're going to share with him about that. And he's with Tan Publishing, and they've done a great job with his books, and then there's DVDs that go with this. And his materials would be excellent just for mom and dad and families at home, for homeschoolers. I think he's with Catholic Homeschool Connections, it's called. Be great for parochial schools, Catholic schools, any place, anywhere. And regarding the story of the church, he says, no nation, no institution, no empire or dynasty has helped shape the world more than the Catholic Church. And that's a mouthful. But can you prove that?
But that's true, yes.
Yeah. Armies have marched upon one another. Kings have risen and fallen. Ideological and political movements have taken hold of entire continents. Diseases and plagues have ravished millions. And through it all, Holy Mother Church has endured, standing as the one source of light in a world so often covered by shadows. That's a mouthful.
That's a mouthful.
And I think it's true. I think the guy can prove it. I think the church has proven it. Christ has proven it. But there's a lot of people who say the direct opposite of that.
Right.
So what's the proof of that? I mean, are there proofs for that? Are there facts? Are there primary texts regarding that? And so Philip's going to unpack all of that for us, and it's a very important work that he's doing.
Right, and it's always important, especially as we are alive in this time and this part of history, that it's no accident that we are alive.
Amen.
We have a mission.
Amen.
We have a purpose. We have to know the strategy that God wants us to live in love, in honesty, in telling the truth as it is, and bearing great witness to the Catholic Church. And, you know, there's so many, the culture, how the culture shifts and moves, but it's the Catholic Church that has to be standing stern, anchored, and where we go to it to say, that's the truth, that's unchangeable, and that's where I choose to live and die.
Kings come and go, presidents come and go, but the Lord presides. He endures forever. And you're blessed to be alive at this time. And Christ is writing history with you and with his church. And the church and Jesus Christ will prevail. Plenty more to come. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy, and today our guest is Philip Campbell. He is a Catholic author, an educator, a historian, and he's the author of a textbook called The Story of the Church from Pentecost to Modern Times. And this great book is available at EWTNRC.com. And Philip, we're delighted to have you with us today. And we want you to tell our family a little bit about yourself and then tell us about how you got so interested in the subject of history.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on. And I guess a little bit about myself. For most of my adult life, I've been a teacher of history and other social studies in various programs and schools. For the past decade, I've been at Homeschool Connections, which is an online Catholic educational program. And several years ago, got involved with Tan Books, preparing historical materials. I'd been a lifelong homeschooler myself, always worked with homeschoolers, and so it's been a tremendous blessing to be able to prepare these materials that people are using all over the world, really, and getting people engaged in history. It's really my passion. As far as how I got involved in history, it goes back to when I was a boy. My mother was she went to college like when I was a young child, and she brought back her college textbooks and left them, like lying around in the basement. And she had like what must have been like for her Western Civ 101 course. She had like a big, like this thick, a huge textbook, and she had it laying around. And I was just going through the basement, and I found this book. And I remember the cover intrigued me. It had a picture of Istanbul, the city of Istanbul, in Turkey. And I was like, "What's that?" And I opened the book. And I'm 12 years old. This is like a college textbook. But what got me into it was the pictures. Like every page had like a nice glossy color picture or map or something, and things that a normal kid doesn't really see. People in ancient Egyptians and Romans and medieval kings and all this stuff. And I was just like, wow, what is this? And I started reading it. Like I said, it was a bit above my level, so I just read through the book, took what I could, and I was just very fascinated by all the stories and the cultures and the things that have happened in human history. Yeah. It just was like, it really broadened my mind. When you're young, you really think in terms of like, my school is the world, or my little town, and then it was like, oh my gosh, this goes back 6,000 years and all over the planet. And so it just kind of started me down a rabbit hole that I'm still happily digging down now that I'm 40.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, we're thrilled that you're with us, not only because you've written so much and have such a wonderful understanding of history, but because with some guests we wonder, will we have enough material? Well, you've written the story of civilization, so we know you can carry a show or two, and the story of the church, okay? So you got a lot of material. And isn't it nice to write when you don't have to necessarily, you have to make it interesting, especially with young people, but that you don't have to make up stuff and like produce stuff. Like, this is history.
Yep.
Speak to us about the importance of history. Why is history itself important? As I said at the outset of the show, I was always interested in history, kind of like you were, like what's going on in different cultures, civilizations. There's a lot of people that are like, maybe even in these modern times, a lot of people are like, well, that's happened. All that matters is now. Yeah. This is now. Why do we want to know anything about there? Maybe not even much about the future, but it's just about now. Why is history important? The accuracy of it, the way it's told, and so on.
Well, I can speak to that just in general for people at large, and then as Catholics in particular. But the general level of historical knowledge of your average person is abysmal, really the reason we should know it. Today, people make historical knowledge very much about power. It enters into modern political controversies about how we understand ourselves and our country. And people really want to kind of control history, control the narrative from the point of view of manipulating what we think today. So a lot of times when you see these fights about the proper understanding of history, how should we approach it, that's never really about history. That's about right now. That's about people wanting to exercise control right now. And I think viewing history as just a tool to beat people over the head with for control now is such an impoverishment of the value it has. The real value of history is as a self-understanding. It's a reflection in what it means to be a human being. I mean, think about this. This is almost a standard trope in movies. You get a alien from another planet comes and they want to learn, what are you humans all about? What's the first thing they always do in the movie? They go to it shows them flipping through a history book real fast or reading all the history. That's a profound truth that you see, because the study of human history that tells us everything you know about human nature. It's a reflection in who we are. What is our place in the world? What is the human potential? That's why it's always among the liberal arts, the highest disciplines that free and open the mind. So that's really the purpose of history. And as a Catholic, as Christians, our religion is a historical religion. And what that means is that the whole reason we are Christians at all is because we believe that at a certain point in history, some very specific things happened.
Right.
This guy named Jesus was born, he rose from the dead. These are historical things. And
Yes.
This whole church, our whole faith exists because certain things happen in history. So this is our family story. This is like studying the family's history. It's of immense importance to us. So again, it's all about understanding where we've come from, our own place in the world, and what it means to be a human and a Christian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And how incredible that is. And it's so wonderful that as a child you got so intrigued with all of that and how beautiful that is. But, because it tells us who we are, the good about us, the best about us, and the worst about us.
Yeah.
So we have to understand as humans that, we're on this line, and are we capable of that? What does our history say? Could we do that? Do we have hope for the future? Do we have hope in the now?
Yeah.
And so, and like you said in the beginning, everybody's living in the now as if this is all that matters. Live in the moment, let it be what this is, and let me spin this the way I want this to be.
Yeah.
And that's the death of us, right? We have to understand who we really are.
It is, and you have to think about these in the medieval times. These people, these men who built the foundations of cathedrals that they knew wouldn't be finished till their grandchildren were grown up. Do we have that sort of long view today? Less and less, unfortunately.
Yes. I was thinking as you were sharing about the historicity of Christ and of the church, because there are people that deny that Christ even existed, or the important thing about Christ is that he's spirit, a certain knowledge, kind of a Gnosticism, a neo-Gnosticism that's here. But our creed says that he was crucified under Pontius Pilate. He suffered, he died, he was buried, he rose again on the third day. Scriptures tell us he appeared to over 500 or 5,000 people. I don't know how many it was that he appeared to them. We speak about Herod, historic. And he's beyond history, the Lord, but it did happen. The incarnation really did happen.
Yeah.
And that's just so important to know as Christians, as Catholics, and to pass this on to our children, that our faith is a historic faith that has implications beyond history, for certain, but that God, the ineffable one, touched down and made history. God made history, in Jesus Christ.
And every time you drive down the street and you see a cross somewhere in any church, it's a tangible monument to the fact that 2 millennia ago, the divine came into this world and touched the earth and walked among us. And especially if we're Catholic, if you go to the Christmas liturgy, the church is always so insist on the historicity. You remember the Christmas proclamation every year where it's like on the 25th day in the reign of Augustus Caesar when this guy was governor. It's very specific that this stuff is history.
I love that part
I
of
do.
the liturgy when they stand up and say that. I was thinking about that. I didn't know where it was from. And, but yeah, that's always, it's just like, and now we're here. The Olympic Games they speak about, and and it's just so incredibly powerful. It changed my life. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, and the Word became flesh. Now, I grew up, within the church and kind of wandered away from it, wasn't catechized properly, plus my own rebelliousness, I guess. And I had to really struggle with that verse. Is Jesus just a teacher or somebody who was here, or is he God with skin, God made poor, God with a face? Because if he was that, if he is that, my life as I know it is over. And whatever you say, and we can prove that it's said, then I must obey that.
And if he is that, then his life is the most important thing that's ever happened in the history of this world.
Right.
Wow. And that's what you were saying, in your book here. So share with us about that. What difference does it make that Jesus Christ was born? that he was in this world. And, you've written on the story of civilization. We could share more about the books and so on. But, set Christ in the context of civilization, which was before Christ, the Word made flesh. I like when we went to Rome, and, America is so new and young and 200-something years old. And so I thought, 2,000 years ago, how can we prove that Jesus was in Israel, or that Paul and Peter were here in Rome? Yeah. And then I saw them excavating some land, and they said, oh, the time of Paul and Peter's current for us. We're excavating 1,000 to 2,000 years before them. That's in Rome, right? So there was civilization before Christ. What difference does Christ make? What difference does it make that he was born? What difference does the church make that they were apostles and that they handed on? What's the story of the church in context of the broader civilization?
Yeah, there's a saying in Catholicism that grace elevates nature. It takes what's natural and elevates it and glorifies it. And that's really what Christ does in history. Of course, you have great civilizations and great accomplishments of human history before and outside Christianity. But really, when Christ comes, he brings something new into the world. He brings a teaching that's capable of unifying all people, not based on which king or emperor had conquered their territory or subjugated them, but based on that we're all children of God, regardless of our race or our ethnicity, what language we speak, our class, wealthy, poor, we're all children of God, equally redeemed. And it's capable of restoring the unity of the human race that's been fragmented since time immemorial, and just elevating the thought and the moral level of humanity beyond what it could have ever risen to under paganism.
Yes. So you're saying, in terms of the story of civilization overall, that Christianity, Christ, really brought something unique. We know it's unique. We believe that he was God with skin, God made poor, God with face. But socially, there was an equality. Yeah. Not a differentiation, because we're different, we're unique, different abilities and so on. But you're saying that there was a human equality that should be recognized personally and by law, really, amongst people and before God. That's new. That's unique.
It's very new, and it's very unique, and it's very, I think because Christianity is not, well, in terms of chronology, it's not new to us. It's been around, but when Christ comes into your life, it's a very new thing, a very fresh thing. But I think we lose touch sometimes of how revolutionary Christ's preaching was and is, how revolutionary and radical the ideals of Christianity are and what they imply, if they're true, in terms of our equality with each other before God, what God expects and demands of us, the role of the church, how we should live, all these things. If that man who walked in Judea 2,000 years ago really is who he claimed to be, it changes everything.
Changes everything. Yeah, it really does. Now, how difficult? What is the great challenge of trying to teach history to young people?
Besides just making them remember it.
Right.
Yeah, it's really, history has so much information, it's so big, it's challenging to get kids to say, okay, this is the fundamental narrative thread we have to focus on. We don't want to get lost in the weeds. I don't want to overwhelm you with too many dates, too many names, too much minutia. I want you to understand enough to get the narrative and understand the story, but I don't want you to feel like, oh, how could I possibly remember all of this? So it's a challenge to do that, but I think the way you do that is by what I try to do in the books is to get back to history as a story instead of history as a slew of facts or a slew of data. Get back to the narrative aspect of history, because history is just the sum of all sorts of individuals' lives and their deeds and their actions, and that's what a story is. And kids actually love stories. I mean, there's no reason kids shouldn't love history. History is a collection of stories. So I think it's all about how we choose to present it, what we choose to emphasize in order to draw out that narrative storytelling aspect that young minds can latch onto.
That was kind of like your original reading of what your mom left out. It's something about a culture, the way people live, what's happening, what do they eat, how do they treat one another. What's their idea
what do they look like?
Of worship or what's going on. Who can I identify with? Well, Philip, we're going to hold you over for our final segment.
Sure.
And so you can hone in on a few things that you want to share, speaking with Philip Campbell. And he's a prolific writer. He's written a series on the story of civilization, and his latest book is The Story of the Church by Philip Campbell, From Pentecost to Modern Times. It just explains the history of the church in such an understandable and beautiful way. It'd be great for your family, for homeschoolers, for Catholic schools, everywhere. We'll be right back. Plenty more to come. Don't go away.
Welcome back. Well, you are at home with Jim and Joy. And Jim, I know that you wanted to ask Philip a question.
Yeah, well, we hear so much these days the term fake news. And really now I think it's worse than fake news. You know, so I want you to speak to revisionism, bias in what people may be sharing, and sometimes they share it as if it's factual, historical. Many people are concerned about this. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's a big question. I get asked that a lot when I speak at conferences, that parents are concerned about their kids reading bad history or biased history. And really the solution, it's by analogy, it's the same problem with literature. If a parent says, I'm afraid my kid is only reading, not reading good literature, what's the solution for that? The solution is to be more broadly read. Like, don't get your literature just from magazines or certain websites. Get more broaden your horizons, read more classics, read all sorts of different books. And the same thing is true for historical bias. People who fall prey to historical biased sources generally do so because they're only getting their history from one source. They're maybe just going online and checking the news or reading just a couple of different websites, and they're kind of swallowing whatever's being fed to them. So the solution, like in literature, is to read more history, get a broader exposure to all sorts of different kinds of historical writing. History, sometimes you do come across bias in historical writing. The more you read, though, the more you read about a certain subject. You're more likely to get a more well-rounded view of, say, the Civil War if you read 4 books about it by 4 different authors instead of reading one web article about it. So if you really are concerned about that, you care about it a lot, the key is to open up young people to reading lots of historical sources, primary sources, other authors, helping them to get like a 360 view of it. Yes, they're simply, I'm sorry, they are going to be exposed to bias. Even in classical authors, even if I send them to a medieval author from 800 years ago, you're still going to get, the French are great and the English are dirty dogs. You're simply going to run across that. But at least you can do is educate your child to understand, this is what bias looks like, so that when I see it, I recognize it. Because I've read so much, now I can understand, I can pick out when the author is trying to subtly work in an argument. So that's really the only thing you can do. Not everybody's going to want to go out and read a bunch of history books, but at the very least, just make sure you're getting things from more than 1 or 2 sources. Get more broadly read on the subject.
Yeah, I seemed to read a quote recently that said something like, well, history is whatever the author wants it to be. Okay? That's really a scary thing. When I was growing up, I didn't think that was out there. I was going to public schools, and really my recollection of history was pretty accurate. You talk about primary sources and so on. I think I had an understanding of the country, how it was founded, when it was founded, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution. I'm not sure people are teaching these things. Well, and now we have, maybe it didn't start in 1776, maybe it was in the 1600s that it began, and it's like, okay, well, what are the primary sources? Who can we trust to give us a fair, accurate history?
It's not so, various history texts don't so much disagree on the facts of history, the hard dates and the evidence. It's more about how they string it together, about the kind of meta-narrative, the context, kind of like we all agree these things happen, but what do they mean? What is implied by that? That's where you start getting into murky waters that you gotta watch out for.
Right.
And not saying that Catholics can't do that also. I've seen Catholic books that I think are heavily biased that I don't recommend because they're very heavily biased. So it just anybody's capable of doing it when your focus is not to simply teach the truth or
Right.
educate, but to try to win an argument.
Well, Philip, thank you so much for beginning to open up this whole area of the importance of history, of true history, to be fair about history and the story of the church. So we'll pick this up again tomorrow. So there's plenty more to come. And we need to understand our history, that we can learn from our history and not repeat that which is not virtuous or evil. And what can happen to us in our own day and time when history is revised and there's strong bias within it. But we know in all things that Jesus Christ, the author of life, the one who's come into history, that he will bring all things into himself, and that the kingdoms of this world will become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ. Keep it on EWTN. Bye now.